Hello, what's up? How you doing? My name is Peter Barker. This is unfamiliar. We're standing today in this video because we're going to do a vinyl collection video. I've been watching a bunch of vinyl related videos. I've been watching I watched an hour-long video from Sean C. He did he's showing off like loads of his vinyl collection. I've also been watching Anthony Fantano do like vinyl update videos. And after I started watching a bunch of those, I started to get recommended like a bunch of obscure and very small YouTube channels who were also doing vinyl collection videos. And I was like, hey, we're stealing this idea because I have some vinyl and I want to show them off. So yeah, this is just basically a cheap way for me to get another video idea. But I feel like this could be a fun video. I don't have like 1,000 records. So if you're expecting this video to be like 2 hours long, it's not going to be, although you already knew that before you clicked on the video. But yeah, I have like 15 or so vinyl. I don't actually know. I haven't counted them. They're right here next to me. I haven't counted them, but I would guess that I have between like 10 and 20 vinyl. I don't know how many. You will see. I will find out as well. Yeah, let's just jump straight into this. So these are going to be in alphabetical order, starting with B, because that's the first one I have. Battles Mirrored. Yes, this is one of my favourite album covers of all time for a start. But yeah, Mirrored is just one of the most creative and forward-thinking rock releases of the 2000s. This is the album that kind of started my journey with math rock that I haven't really gone that far in since. But yeah, this quickly became an all-time favourite ever since I heard it. If I open up the gatefold, you can see the image here of the studio, kind of the same as on the front cover, but just expanded. There's just something about the yellow of the drum kit and the black of kind of the rest of it, like the amps here in the background, as well as just the black here. There's just something about that contrast that just makes me love this album cover so much. As for the music on this album, it's just super creative, off the wall, experimental rock music. There's so many weird experiments on here. For instance, the song Atlas, which is actually one of the more simple and like conventional song structures on here. And you might have heard Atlas if you've played Little Big Planet. I believe the soundtrack includes that song. But yeah, you've also got the opener Race In and the closer Race Out, which are some of the more like hard-hitting, abrasive, rock-oriented songs on the album. There's some more like R&B oriented spots, such as the song Lion Decker. I don't actually know if I'm pronouncing that right or not. Tonto is an amazing song as well, super long form, so many different musical switch-ups and tempo switch-ups. Just go and listen to this album if you haven't already, man. It's one of my all-time favourites, probably always will be. And it sounds so 2007, and I know that's weird coming from me for a start because I was like 5 or 6 when this album first dropped, but when I listen to this, it just sounds like that year. I can't describe it. Weird feeling. There's also a poster that comes with the vinyl that's up there that I'm not going to show you because I can't be bothered to move my camera. But yeah, go listen to Mirrored. Amazing album. All-time favourite. Okay, next up we have a much more recent album. This one came out in 2019 and was actually my favourite album of the year for 2019, and that is Black Midi's Schlagenheim, another experimental rock album. I promise it's not just all experimental rock. Black Midi are actually yet to follow this up because it only came out about 2 years ago. But this is great. This album shows a lot of promise. And I think they can go on to become one of the best and most like forward-thinking bands in rock music going into the 2020s. There are so many songs that go hard on this album, like for example, Boom Boom Boom. I think it's called Boom Boom Boom. Might be BM BM BM, but we're going to go with Boom Boom Boom. That song was probably my favourite song of 2019, or right up there at least. 953 as well is crazy opener. There's so many different like musical passages and switch ups on that track. Another one of my favourite songs on the album is Of Schlagenheim. That song in particular, by the way, sounds amazing on vinyl. The whole thing sounds amazing on vinyl. It's really one of those albums where you listen to it digitally and you love it, but you get it on vinyl and it's like, it just sounds so much better. If you haven't heard this album and you're into post-punk, experimental rock, industrial, that kind of thing, you know, this is for you. Give this a listen. All right, on to the next one. We have Some Rap Songs by Earl Sweatshirt. this might just be the greatest album cover of all time. Just going to throw that one out there. This is hip-hop album of the year for 2018. 100%. I don't want to hear no arguments. Okay, that's a bit harsh. There were some good albums that came out in 2018 in terms of hip-hop. In fact, there were a lot of good ones. But this is just fantastic. I love this album. This is an all-time favourite for me once again. I remember first hearing some rap songs and I was almost like disappointed by how abstract and like left field this album was in comparison to like Doris and I Don't Like Shit, I Don't Go Outside. Eventually though, the abstract and the lo-fi production techniques and recording techniques, they just clicked. And this album just stands head and shoulders above the rest of Earl's discography in terms of like artistic expression and getting across a certain feeling of despondency and depression. I could talk about this album all day, honestly. Let me show you the vinyl itself. I believe this is a poem on the sleeve here. This is most likely written by Earl's dad, who is mentioned a lot on the album. I don't actually know for certain though, but it does mention things like loss and depression, which are themes that Earl tackles in the album. And there's also a part in here about refugees, which if you listen to the album, the track Playing Possum, there's a sample of Earl's dad on there speaking, reciting a poem, and he mentions refugees in the poem. So that leads me to believe that this was written by Earl's dad. Again, it's just a standard black pressing with just song titles on the label here. There isn't really much to show you here. I don't have any coloured vinyl. All my vinyl are black, and you know, obviously black is great, but I don't know, I want some coloured vinyl. There are so many coloured vinyl that look so sick. I don't have any yet, but I will aim to get some in the future. This drawing of Earl is the best thing I've ever seen. These amazing quotes here that I'm going to let you read. Yeah, I love it. Little South Africa flag down there. This is a great album. This is a great album. This is Earl Sweatshirt's best album by far. I do love his other stuff, don't get me wrong, but I just feel like Some Rap Songs is so much more cohesive, so much more artistically refined. There's so much more attention to detail, and it just adds up to a more, you know, fulfilling experience, in my opinion. Right, moving on. This next one has a very, very special place in my heart for a reason that I will explain in a second. It's Lift Your Skinny Fists Like Antennas. I almost forgot the name of the album. Lift Your Skinny Fists Like Antennas to Heaven by Godspeed, You Black Emperor. Now, the reason this is so special to me is because when I first heard this album, it immediately became my favourite album of all time. Nowadays, I don't know if I would call it that, because I just cannot come up with like the list of my favourite albums. I don't know what my favourite album is. If you forced me to write like a top 5 or a top 10 list of my favourite albums of all time, I would do it. I might not be satisfied with it, but yeah, this was like definitively my favourite album of all time for quite a while after I heard it. So yeah, this one's very special. This was really my first, and many people's first, exploration into post-rock as a genre. And yeah, this thing is incredible. Some really weird artwork here. It's like they're wearing masks, and this dude, I don't know, man. It's just like a very apocalyptic artwork, and if you listen to the album, you'll understand that connection. But this is a super like long form experience. I think the album's about an hour and a half, so there are longer albums for sure. But each track is like 20 plus minutes. There's only 4 tracks. And if you haven't heard this and you're looking for an album that you can just sit and, you know, really dive into, really have an experience with, this is the one for you. This is definitely the album for you. The inside of the gatefold is sick, man. It probably just looks like a whole bunch of nothing from what you're seeing here, but it actually is a timeline of the whole album. So they've written down each movement in the album. So basically every song in the album, there's a load of different movements within each song. There's loads of different musical passages, and on the inside of the gatefold, they have actually labelled where every movement stops and starts. So it's very useful if like you want to know where you are in the album. But you don't need it. You can just throw this on and you can just enjoy it. There's a lot of amazing, grand, classical instrumentation all over this album. and it sounds so good, especially on vinyl. I don't want to spoil this one too much for you, to be honest. If you haven't heard this, I know I've been saying this for everyone, but if you haven't heard this, please, at some point in your life, give this a listen. It's incredible. It's incredible stuff. Okay, moving on. We're going to go a bit further back in time. This one is an absolute classic. It's yet another rock album. But this time, it's your boy, Jimi Hendrix. We got some psychedelic rock in the mix now. This one's actually a little bit battered now that I remember. The sleeves are kind of battered. The sleeve on that one is ripped. I don't know if you can see that, but it's ripped actually in a couple places. So that's not good. That's not very promising. I'll tell you what was promising though. This dude's music career. And then he passed away at 27. You know, infamous 27 Club and all that. But, you know, rest in peace to the dude. I think he could have gone on to release like so many more great albums, but I mean, that's a given. But he didn't have the chance. He didn't have the chance, unfortunately. But there's so many classic songs on this album. Obviously, everyone's heard All Along the Watchtower, the famous cover of the Bob Dylan song, which is better than the original. It's one of those rare instances when the cover is actually better than the original song. Of course, you have Voodoo Child Slight Return, which is another massively popular song. Let me show you the back. That's what I'm reading. We have Voodoo Child as well, the 15-minute improvisational epic of a song. I'm going to have to move behind the camera again, but if we open the gatefold, it just kind of has like a bunch of pictures of the dude recording and making music and just doing his thing, being himself. Again, I'll just show you one of the LPs. There's really no point in me doing this because there is not much to see with this. But this is more of an opportunity for me to talk about the music, if anything, to be honest. It does also come with this little booklet, which is like a mini biography of sorts. There's just a lot of written information here about Jimi Hendrix and about who he was and about his influence today, and you know, kind of the tragedy of what happened to him. Yeah, it's I have read through it once. I read through it when I first got this album on vinyl a couple years back, but yeah, it's some pretty thought-provoking stuff in this booklet. In my opinion, this is just Jimi Hendrix at his most creative, at his most inventive. The guitar work, of course, that is the trademark and the staple of Jimi Hendrix's music, is his ability on the guitar. I think that is the best it ever was on Electric Ladyland. Yeah, this album's great, man. What else can I say? It's Jimi damn Hendrix. You know who the dude is. All right, next one. I swear, every single video I do on this channel, this album gets mentioned. You probably know what it is now, but every time I do a video, I mention Kendrick Lamar's To Pimp a Butterfly. In some way, I will mention this album. And of course, I own it on vinyl. So here it is, showing up in another one of my videos. If you don't know, this is the album that got me into music. If it weren't for this album, I would not listen to music in the way that I do now. I would not, you know, actually sit and experience an album. I would not actually sit and pay attention to what's going on in the music if it was not for this album. So of course, because it was the first album that got me into music, it only made sense to me for this to be the first vinyl I ever bought. And it was the first vinyl I ever bought. But unfortunately, I got it pre-owned, which I hate doing. All the vinyl I've bought since have all been from like a record store or a shop of some sort. But I got this pre-owned from eBay, and it came in not great condition. Like, there's a lot of skipping on it. But I also used to be really bad at handling my my records, so I made it worse with what I was doing with the records. So this just skips a lot, and I never usually listen to it on vinyl. So I kind of need to buy it again. I want to buy it brand new and then just like throw this away, or maybe I won't. Maybe I'll keep this. What can I say about this album that, you know, hasn't already been said? It's, in my opinion, like the greatest hip hop album of all time. I mean, that's very much arguable, but it's certainly to me the best hip hop album of the 2010s. Not really like much of a discussion. It's like becoming such a consensus opinion at this point. Maybe you could throw like My Beautiful Dark Twisted Fantasy in the conversation if you want. Personally, I would 100% take this album. Again, here's just the vinyl itself, just a standard like white label with album titles on there. I don't know if you can actually see that or not because my lighting isn't very good. Not much to see there anyway. But yeah, it's To Pimp a Butterfly. We all know what this is. Of course, I'm going to show you the inside of the gatefold. So there's a bunch of pictures of Kendrick and of some of the people on the front cover. The butterfly image up there with all the credits, and there's credits for each song as well. He's like written the song title in yellow, and then you can see everyone who is involved in the making of the song underneath it. There just isn't much else I can say about this album. I guess I'll talk about it musically a little bit. Super conceptual, ambitious. The instrumentals on this album, the blend of jazz and funk with hip hop. The musicians that Kendrick collaborated with on this, like Flying Lotus, Thundercat, George Clinton of Parliament Funkadelic, and everyone on the album who's involved as a feature, and a producer, and a musical contributor of some sort, and of course Kendrick himself. They all come together to create this absolute masterpiece of an album. I'm not going to say anything else about it because I'm going to be sat here for ages. It's To Pimp a Butterfly. If you haven't heard it, what are you doing? We got King Gizzard and the Lizard Wizard with Nonagon Infinity. This actually came today, earlier today, on the day of me recording this. This came today. I haven't even listened to this on vinyl yet. I'm very excited to do that. I will do that after I record this. But I saw this on HMV and I was like, I have to pick this up on vinyl because it has such like a lo-fi kind of recording aesthetic that I really wanted to see how it would translate to vinyl. King Gizzard and the Lizard Wizard are one of the most prolific rock bands of the 2010s, and that is a very, very true statement if you go and look at how many albums they've released in the 2010s. I've only heard 2 of their albums. I've heard this, and I've heard Flying Microtonal Banana. This is the better of the 2 in my opinion, and I don't know why I picked those 2 to start, but this is the better of the 2, and this is also one of my favourite albums of the 2010s in general, to be honest. I mean, 9 tracks, they all flow super well into each other, and they kind of create like a loop from the last song to the first song if you play them back to back, and that's hence the title Nonagon Infinity. This is such a thrilling and a fun experience. I really have as much fun listening to an album as I do with Nonagon Infinity. And also, I just want to show you this crazy picture of, I believe this is the lead vocalist, Stu McKenzie. What is this? What is he doing? I love it. I love this. I saw this earlier today when I opened this up and I was like, this might be like the best artwork on any vinyl I have. This is just ridiculous. Nonagon Infinity, King Gizzard. I'm really excited to spin that one. And up next we have an absolute classic once again from the King of Pop himself. It's Michael Jackson's Thriller. I'm just gonna have to go ahead and get that out of this this case that I bought it in. I got this from HMV as well. In fact, I think my brother bought this for me. Shout out to Stephen. My brother got this for me for my birthday last year. I think we were in HMV or something. It must have been HMV. But yeah, there's not much to say about this one. The best-selling album of all time. It was a really weird time when Michael Jackson passed away back in, I believe it was 2009, correct me if I'm wrong. I think it was 2009, because I didn't know anything about Michael Jackson when he passed away, but when I found out that he passed away, I just went and listened to all his stuff and like became super enamored with the guy. What was I? I must have been 7 or 8 years. I think I was 7 when he passed away. And yeah, I just went off and listened to all his music, and I just became like obsessed with him for like a couple years after I started listening to him. And this has just been like an all-time favourite since then, really. I mean, I only listened to the album itself like maybe 2 years ago, 3 years ago kind of thing. But I already knew like almost every song on it because I was obsessed with him about 12 years ago. So this is, yeah, if you can't really go wrong with Michael Jackson. You can't go wrong with this album. Billie Jean is one of my favourite songs of all time. Do not at me. That song will never get old. I don't care what anyone says. Thriller as well, the title track, is another one of my all-time favourite songs. What's the point? You know who Michael Jackson is. You know what this album is. It's the best-selling album ever. Let's move on. Next up, it's Nas's Illmatic. And again, this is like another case of what can I say that hasn't already been said about this album. But, you know, absolute 90s hip-hop legend. This is one of the best albums in hip-hop history. I think most people that have heard it or most people that are hip-hop fans will agree. I did talk about this album in my top 5 90s hip-hop albums video like 8 or 9 months ago, that must have been now. But I kind of mentioned it in that video, and I'll say it again here. The Illmatic is just like the essence of hip-hop. It's just one like classic East Coast boom bap beat after another. Technical proficiency, complex rhyme schemes, and amazing flows. And I think Nas kind of set the stage for the introduction of like poetry in hip-hop. You know how people often say rap is rhythm and poetry. I think this album like exemplifies that statement better than any other album. You know, the way Nas paints these like vivid pictures of Queens, and the way he tells stories about things that he's experienced and his upbringing in New York, it just makes you feel like you're there. You just feel like you're standing there watching this take place. I'm just going to show you the label here. It's like a super throwback, like just the record label at the top there, the title and the album, the artist and the album title. And then, I don't know if you can see this properly because my lighting is terrible, but like the track list here as well. I forget that labels just used to print vinyl like this. Like it just used to be super standard like this. None of the fancy artwork that we see today. But yeah, man. Most of you watching this video have probably heard Illmatic, so I don't really need to go on in much more detail about the music on this album. But yeah, just an all-out hip-hop classic. I love this album. Everyone loves this album. Let's move on. Okay, we've only got a couple more, and this is what I like to call the normie section of my vinyl collection, because now I have 2 Pink Floyd albums and 2 Radiohead albums. First of all, we have Dark Side of the Moon. What a surprising album to own on vinyl, right? No one had. I'm the only person in the world with this on vinyl, aren't I? Yeah, this is like the cliche album to own on vinyl. It's like the first one every person buys when they get a turntable. There's obviously the huge crowd of people that say Dark Side of the Moon is like massively overrated and everything, and it is a little bit overrated. But I still think this album deserves like most of the praise it gets. Like, it is genuinely a fantastic and a great album. If you've seen my ranking Pink Floyd's top 4 albums video, then you know my stance on this album and you know where I think it ranks in Pink Floyd's discography. And if you haven't seen it, then I'm going to spoil it now. I think it's their 3rd best album. But yeah, this is, and again, we have the throwback labelling here on the LP itself, but we do have the classic triangle, of course, and just the title and the track list kind of shoddily printed outside of the triangle, which looks a bit crap, but it's fine. It's fine. This is an old album. I think this is a remastered pressing of it, but you know, they want to maintain that like classic look, which is absolutely fine by me. Oh, before we put this one down, let me just mention the song "The Great Gig in the Sky" from this album used to be my favourite song of all time. I think I spoke about this in my ranking Pink Floyd's Big 4 albums video. That song used to be my favourite song of all time, and the reason it was because I first listened to this album at a time where I was kind of contemplating the idea of death quite a lot. I know this sounds kind of dark, but I heard this when I was like, 15, 16, and I was just thinking a lot about the idea of like, oh, death, what's going to happen when we die and all this, and like, oh, death is so scary. You know, you have like a phase of death consciousness. I was like in a big phase of that, and then I heard The Great Gig in the Sky and like the way it addresses death, and it really personally related with me a lot, and I really like kind of fell in love with the song. So that's, you know, a fact about this album for me personally. I don't know. Anyway, enough of this. We're going to put this one down now because this is not the best Pink Floyd album. I'll show you what is the best Pink Floyd album. And like I say, if you've seen my ranking Pink Floyd's Big 4 albums, you'll know what album I'm about to show you. It's Wish You Were Here. Firstly, this just absolutely iconic album cover. You've probably seen it, but it's the business people shaking hands and one of them's on fire. It's such a powerful, like, resonant image, and I love it. Obviously, the Dark Side of the Moon one is like more famous, but I just think this is a little bit more impactful. I've said this before, but I think Wish You Were Here is Pink Floyd at their most musically adventurous, as I just show you the label, if I can get it the right way around. I think this album is, Pink Floyd at their most musically adventurous. The tributes to Syd Barrett on this album are very heartfelt. The way they explore things like exploitation in the music industry as well, and how they kind of tie that into the story of Syd Barrett is great. There's a lot of amazing songs on here, like Shine On You Crazy Diamond, both parts. The title track, Wish You Were Here. I'm forgetting what's on this album, in fact. Have a Cigar, Welcome to the Machine. The whole album is fantastic. And yeah, I think this is Pink Floyd doing what they do best. So let's finish this off with some Radiohead. We have OK Computer, but it's the 97 to 2017 OK Not OK edition. It's the 20th anniversary deluxe edition. And I've had this vinyl for like, 2-3 years at this point. I've still never listened to a single one of the bonus tracks that come with this like deluxe edition. I've still not heard a single one. This is of course like the consensus pick for the best Radiohead album. In my opinion, I do think it's their third best. I did make a Radiohead worst to best video like 2-3 years ago at this point. My list has completely changed, but what hasn't changed is my top 3. I still think this is their third best album, and I still have In Rainbows and Kid A above it. But there is no denying that this album is amazing. It's really like the king of Radiohead's discography in a way. It's the album that gets the most love, gets the most attention, gets the most praise. As most of you probably know, this has a lot of Radiohead's like best songs on it. Paranoid Android, of course. Exit Music is wow. That song is just wow. Karma Police, The Tourist, Lucky. You know, this is amazing, and the fact that this is, in my opinion, Radiohead's third best album is just a testament to how stacked their discography really is. Yeah, I'm sure you've heard this, but if you haven't, obviously listen to it because it's great. Once again, though, that is not Radiohead's best album. That would be this, Kid A, at least in my opinion. This was the first Radiohead album I ever heard. I don't know why I did that. And if you want to get into Radiohead's discography and you haven't already, do not start with Kid A. Start with OK Computer or In Rainbows. Don't start with this. Why you would start with the left field electronic album in their discography? I don't know. Start with one of the more conventional albums and then get to this. But in my opinion, this is their best album. This album artwork as well is just one of my favourites of all time. It looks wonderful. It looks wonderful. In the inside of the gatefold, there's kind of more of this like super dystopian, mountainous artwork. Is mountainous a word? I hope mountainous is a word. Kid A is, of course, when Radiohead started to experiment more with like electronica and ambient music and krautrock. I'll just talk a little bit about this album musically, I guess. The more experimental tracks like the National Anthem, mind-blowing. The cacophony that song creates, it just like makes me want to curl up in the best way possible, if you can curl up with misery in a good way. How to Disappear Completely is absolutely beautiful. I was re-listening to this album the other day, in fact, and that song, for whatever reason, has never really been like one of my absolute favourites on this album, but as soon as I heard it the other day, I was like, I forget how amazing this track is. I forget how sad it makes me. Optimistic as well is also one of my favourite Radiohead songs and one of my favourite songs of all time. I love how tense the song is. I love Thom Yorke's songwriting. I mean, you've got Idiotech, you've got Morning Bell, you've got Motion Picture Soundtrack. Just this album is it. The final one I want to show you, this is a little bonus. This is Thom Yorke with Suspiria. I'm not even going to try and pronounce the film that this soundtracks, but my brother bought this for me a couple years ago. And sorry, Stephen, mate, but I still haven't listened to this. I think he got this for me in like 2017 or 18, and I still haven't heard it. Still to this day, it's 2021. Still haven't heard a single second of this. So I think I need to spin this soon. Anyway, that's the full extent of my vinyl collection, and we're at the end of the video pretty much. Please do let me know what you think of this format, because I kind of like doing this format where I just stand here with a bit more space and kind of do something like this. It's kind of laid back, it's kind of fun, I thought. Let me know what you think of this kind of video, because I might experiment a bit more with this in the future. That has been my vinyl collection. Thank you very much for watching, and I will see you in the next one.